Okay, and welcome back to WNRD Radio Nerd America. This is episode 11. I think we're going to jump right into it. We've been gone for a little bit longer than we wanted to.
A lot of things to catch up on.
Yeah, a lot of things to catch up on. So let's just dive right in. We're going to start with the Star Wars Celebration. Happened just last week. I'm going to let Alan run with this one a bit because though we both love Star Wars, I think he is the Star Wars expert out of us two people here.
Yeah, so I wasn't really following the Star Wars Celebration as it was going on, but like once the week was over, then I jumped online and sort of dig into some stuff. So I think the number one thing we should just touch on is the Episode 8 trailer.
Of course.
So in classic first trailer fashion, right? The good visuals, no sense of what the story is really. You know, they have Luke's line at the end of the trailer. It's time for the Jedi to end or something like that, which you never know what it might actually mean.
How many millions of words in just the last week have been used just to try and discern what that means?
Right, so let's start to dig into what we saw a little bit. And first of all, I never want to fall for that kind of stuff. I feel like they try to a little sleight of hand in the beginning when they do these. Like Luke may say that the first 3 minutes of the movie, and then by the end of the movie, he may not believe that at all. So we don't know if it's really going to be the end of the Jedi or whatever.
Exactly, but it's got people talking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can see, if we're going to discuss this, I'm going to say I can kind of see where he's coming from in that for thousands of years there's been Jedi, and if there's Jedi, there's Sith. So, and there's always been this talk of the balance of the Force, and obviously the person they were talking about was, in the prophecy, was his father, but then maybe it wasn't, maybe it was actually Luke. I think any kind of Messiah-like figure, like Luke has become, or his father before him, would probably be sick of it. I mean, it hasn't brought him much good.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's seen it kind of come and go. You know, at the last movie, we kind of made it out that the Jedi are sort of a fable in the universe now. Some people don't even know that they ever existed. Right, the Empire is trying to sort of whitewash them out of history. Yeah, the First Order.
Which is weird because they've only been gone 30 years, and not even.
Yeah, it has been 30 years, but even then, it's been... There's only been like 2 or 3 of them, though, for the 25 years before that.
Right, so it's been a good... We're going to guesstimate a good 50 years.
Yeah, since there was an abundance, right? Since the Order 66, right?
Exactly.
So what else was in there that caught your eye? I've only watched it twice. I didn't binge on it because I don't like to go too deep too early on that kind of stuff.
It caught my eye once again seeing the Falcon flying around and having such a key presence.
Blew up a TIE fighter. We don't know who's flying it, though.
Exactly.
It's not Han.
Right. Obviously it's not. Well, you say that. And I don't believe it is Han, but here you have Harrison Ford out there saying Han could be alive still. So I don't think that's the case.
Right.
But I gotta believe it's obviously Chewie and someone. Is it Rey? Who knows?
Yeah.
I would think so, but you don't know.
Yeah, we see Rey training with the lightsaber under Luke's tutelage.
I love that scene where they show it way from the distance and she's. Oh my god,
thank God for drones, right? That's how we get those shots.
No kidding. You don't have to buy the expensive helicopters anymore.
No.
Just get a drone. But yeah, I gotta say that one scene right there gave me a chill. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm just really excited about Luke, right? Because I feel like when you think back to the Star Wars movies, it's Han stands out, Leia stands out. Like it almost feels like Luke was sort of second or third fiddle to everything else going on. And this movie has really set up to be like, look, everything revolves around Luke. And if there is no more Han, then it's like his time to truly be the main piece, right?
I think he has to be, the main focus. Especially after the last movie when he shows up and just gives that pitiful stare, doesn't actually say anything. Like, not even, who are you? It's just, he stares and they linger on him for so long and then just, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, the Star Wars theme. And I'm like, what? That's it?
Yeah, that was one of the mother of all cliffhanger endings, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, it was exciting. Some great visuals. If you really want to theorize, you can get into that. But there wasn't a ton in there to really build off of, just enough to whet the appetite.
Yeah, it was. I liked the scene where right at the beginning, towards the beginning, where Rey's got her hand on the ground and you can see the
pebbles rising.
The pebbles, levitating and all that. Whether that's her power or she's doing that with the Force, who knows? But it's just, it's cool.
Yeah, and we get brief glimpses of Poe and who's our defector stormtrooper.
Defector stormtrooper.
I get confused between his real name and his name.
Finn.
Finn. Yeah. So we see brief glimpses of those two.
Finn, we only really seen one scene, and he's like in a Bacta tank or something.
Yeah.
And people have already gone through, and they translated the Orbesh that's on the tank, and it says stable. So, he's healing from his wounds from the last movie. But that's all we see of him.
Yeah, we don't see much of Kylo Ren. I mean, a little bit flashing his fancy lightsaber, but...
You see his scar, which they move.
Yeah. Captain Phasma, we might see just a glimpse of her. Again, we're not getting much to go off of.
And that might even be a flashback, because it seems... they show what appears to be the new Jedi temple or whatever it is Luke has, the school, and you see the fire, and then you see the Captain Phasma and the First Order Stormtroopers. Is that happening now? Is it a flashback?
Yeah.
Who knows? So... Because Phasma, you almost got to believe she died in the last movie, but obviously we know she's back.
Well, yeah, she can't. Well, I wouldn't have believed she died just because they seemed to make a big marketing push around her and her character, and she was hardly in the movie. So my opinion was just like, oh, well, she's going to come back and be a bigger part of this movie. That's what I thought.
I would think so.
Yeah.
But obviously we won't know until... For 8 more months.
Right, yeah, we're still a little ways off. But so moving along, one of the next things that I just have written down here that came out of Star Wars Celebrations was a little bit more glimpse into, I guess I forget the official name, but I'll call it Star World, sort of Star Wars land at Disney World and Disneyland. Supposed to open in 2019, I believe. Yeah, 2019, because it's not next year. It's looking pretty interesting. I don't know, they had a panel, like a 30-minute panel discussion, as well as they released like a 3-minute trailer video showing some art and some pictures of the build site as it stands right now. Did you watch any of that?
Just a little bit. I've seen some of the artist renderings and stuff. I have to admit, as much as I love Star Wars, I'm not a huge theme park.
So that was going to be my next question. Like, are you kind of interested in this, or are you actually really excited about this?
I'm indifferent. Mm-hmm. Like, if I happen... Here's the thing. A week and a half ago was the first time I've been to a theme park in probably 10, 15 years. Yeah. Yes, I got kids, but that's not something we usually do. All I see is this is going to be expensive. So,
well, let me ask you this, because I think I'm getting where you're coming from. We've talked enough that I kind of get a sense for where you're going. We have talked a little bit, and you're a big, huge Alien fan.
Yes.
So let's just say, let's put ourselves in each other's shoes. If there was not even so much of a theme park, but if you could think of a scenario where you could go and the ship and these worlds and labs are all recreated, and you could kind of go in there and feel like you're totally immersed into what is your one of favorite franchise of all time, would that be something you're excited about, or do you think you're just kind of too old for that kind of stuff?
I might be too old now, only because they used to have something like that. It was in England for the Alien experience. And it interested me when it was there, but that was like 10, 15 years ago. But I never, obviously, went to go see it. But it was interesting to me. But again, I don't know. Maybe I just can't suspend disbelief enough when I go to one of those places to feel like I'm really there. I'm like, I know this is fake.
Well, yeah, but so I guess what I'm getting at here, good or bad, is maybe the sort of imagination and dreaminess of it all you're kind of over, maybe. Because when I look at this Star Wars thing, this world, I'm still very much like, I'm gonna go there, and I'm really gonna, everything that you're kind of like, no, I don't feel that way. That's what I think I will feel. Okay. I'm gonna go there and really feel like, yes, this world that I've dreamed about and played with toys and thought about and visualized in my head for so much, I'm gonna just be able to walk in there and it's gonna be real. Droids, and they're gonna have like 5 or 6 full-size AT-ATs. You're gonna be able to literally walk up to it, look up to it, and get a sense of how big this thing really is. Like, look, those little things are just like gold nuggets to me.
That thing you just said right there, by looking up and seeing a full-size AT-AT, whatever you call it, that does interest me. That would be pretty badass. But as a whole, no, like, they've announced this, and then not related, but the Avatar world that's also coming.
I mean, just imagine all the great merch they're going to have there, too.
All I can think is overpriced merch. So, I think you hit the nail on the head in that. Yeah, that just doesn't excite me. Maybe if I did go and experience it, maybe I'd change my tune.
So, let me bring up another thing that I thought was very interesting in the panel discussion they had. So, if I recall correctly, you haven't seen Westworld yet.
I have not.
Okay, so you still have to watch that, but something really neat about the Star Wars world they're developing is they were saying that they're playing around with this idea that sort of decisions you make in the park can affect your experience. So they talked about there's going to be a ride where you and a crew of 4 people sort of fly the Falcon, and you have a pilot, a co-pilot, and a gunner, and like a mechanic or something in the ride, and you have to get through the battle. And you can choose to, bump into stuff and blow stuff up. Like, you can choose to try to be safe and keep the ship clean, or you can choose to be risky and, like, you really, really damage the ship. And they say that whatever you choose, there will be consequences to that. Like, people may come up and talk to you later, or it may affect what the storyline is of the next ride. They're saying, I bring Westworld in because that's sort of like the whole concept of Westworld. Right. That you go in a world and you can make decisions that affect your entire experience. Now, they're not going to be like Westworld. I think it might be 2 or 3 little things like that.
Right.
They talked about, bounty hunters in the cantina might come up to you and propose you. Do you want to do this, do that? So it can kind of be this sort of interactive thing you can opt in or opt out of, I think, is what they're saying. Which sounds really interesting to me because I feel like at this day and age and the amount of money, they could do it really cool if they wanted to.
So you're saying basically some of these attractions could be like LARPing.
Well, I'm not familiar with the term as much, but
live
like choose your own
live action role play.
Yes, so like choose your own adventure kind of
LARPing.
thing.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah.
It's live action role play. So
okay, yeah, totally is what they're trying to get at. And they were in the panel, they were very specific to not get into too much detail, but that was one of the big things they hinted at was like you're going to be able to tailor the experience however you want. The rides will change, the experiences will change, characters. And they announced that it's a world that exists in the current universe, but it's like a new one, right? It's not one that we've read about or heard of.
It's not Hoth or
right. It's any of that. And they went out of their way to say, like, well, it wouldn't be any fun to do that because everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows that story, so they wanted to make a new one that will also influence books and stuff in the future. So,
well, of course, we got to tie it in for merchandising.
Yeah, so this thing's going to be a jumping off point for the next, decades.
I will say this: you've slightly piqued my interest now that I know it's going to be that in depth. But again, maybe this is just me being thrifty. But what you described sounds pretty expensive. So we'll see. We'll see. How about this? When they do it, when they open it in 2 years, I know you're going to go and you're going to experience it. You can come back and tell me whether it's worth paying for or not. I think you're going to say yes.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure you already know the answer to that. I mean, I'm totally going to say yes. So, okay, so we'll move along on that, but I thought that was really interesting. We're going to hear and see more on that as it develops. And then they also announced at Star Wars Celebration that the next anthology movie that will be released in 2020, they're going to announce what that is later this summer. So, we have the cadence of extended trilogy movie, then Rogue One, then extended trilogy movie, and then the Han Solo story is coming next.
Yes.
And then we have Episode 9, but we don't know what's after that, and that's what they're going to announce. You've heard some of the rumors. What are some of the ideas people have been kicking around?
Here are the 2 that I think seem the most likely, and none of this should be a surprise to any Star Wars fan. Either an Obi-Wan movie, which Ewan McGregor's starting to get older now.
Yeah.
So if they wait long enough, maybe he'll be as old as the original.
Yeah.
Or Boba Fett.
Yeah. So I'm going to agree with one on there, and I'm going to tag on another one. I don't see the Obi-Wan movie. I just think it's a little bit... They don't need to go to the well that early, in my opinion. We've seen a lot of Obi-Wan. I think they're going to want to play off of, they're still looking at the reverberations of Rogue One, right? New characters, how well did it sell? How many new fans did it bring in? I think they're going to maybe look to do something new. Although I do think the Boba Fett is a good one to go to because, Obi-Wan, we've seen him. He's in Clone Wars. He's in almost everything. But Boba Fett fans have always wanted more.
Yes.
So I could definitely see that being a home run. My sort of wild card pick would be a Yoda movie.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Because you can do the whole thing CGI, and I think if they did a Yoda movie, they could go back pre-prequels.
Well, yeah, because he's 900 years old.
Right, so they could go back
hundreds of years.
Right, because like Guardians of the Galaxy for Marvel, right, they needed to have a jumping-off point that took them away from just everything happening in New York City, right? And I think that's what the Yoda movie could be. It could take everything away from happening within 20 years of the Clone Wars, right?
That would interest me. I meant a Boba Fett movie interests me more.
The Boba Fett movie is going to be a home run, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, well, what would a wild card be? So
I have to agree with you. You're right, because Obi-Wan is in Rebels. We've seen his story. We know how it ends. Maybe we don't need to go back to that well right away, like you said. And really, now that I think of it, Boba Fett has not really shown up in these now canonical cartoons and whatnot. Whereas we've seen Obi-Wan.
mm-hmm.
You know, we've seen a lot of backstory for a lot of characters.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen a lot of backstory of
In
Boba.
going back to Star Wars Celebration, another thing they showed that there was some dropped footage of Boba Fett in, was it Rebels or Clone Wars? I forget the other. There's another bounty hunter that I forget his name, but he wears a big round sombrero like hat.
Oh yeah, I know.
He's got a blue face or whatever. I forget his name, but anyways, him and Boba Fett had an interaction.
Right.
And this would have been young Boba Fett when he first got the suit, and they were kicking around the idea that there's a shots fired, and that's how Boba Fett gets the dent in his helmet. But they took it out, and people were speculating that, well, they took that out because they wanted to be able to revisit that story in something much bigger than a 3-minute segment of an animated series, right?
Like possibly a movie?
Like the movie, exactly. So I think it could be that one. I mean, I think that'd be an easy home run.
Here's the thing. Okay. One thing I just want to throw out there, besides the movie coming out in 2020, what I find interesting, so obviously the last 2 movies have been December releases. This third movie, the next sequel movie, is also December release.
Mm-hmm.
But currently, the Han Solo movie is scheduled for May of 2018.
Yeah, we may have touched on this before, but at some point they're going to need to start speeding up the cadence, just because why not, right? Let's make some more money. Let's crank some more stuff out. I think they do, because the goal, look, they're trying to print money. And so why print money once a year when you can print money every 8 months?
But Disney already owns Marvel, which has now increased to 3 movies a year. So now they have at least 4 huge tentpole movies a year, just one studio.
Yeah, but there's somebody else that's in charge of just running the Star Wars business, right?
It's still Lucasfilm, but I'm just saying.
I mean, they don't need to. We know they don't need to, but it's like, why not?
Here's what I think, and I'm wondering if this is the case. So obviously, Episode 7 comes out, or not Episode 7, Episode 8 comes out this winter. Then a scant 6 months later, we have Han Solo. Then there's an 18-month gap. Is that all to build up the anticipation for the end of the second trilogy or third trilogy?
Right, or they're going to slip another one in there. But, they're not going to slip another one in there unless not another full-blown movie, right? Because they would have announced it by now.
Yeah, exactly.
But there may be other stuff, right? At Celebration, they tease some animated series things. Rebels is going, I think Rebels only has one more season or something. Rebels is almost over.
Have they confirmed that yet? I thought they're still.
I thought I read something that they did, that it was only like one more season or something. But so there's going to be other things that get plugged in the next 2 or 3 years, right? Books and all that kind of stuff. So
that's a good segue into Thrawn.
Right. So that was the other thing we wanted to discuss, the Thrawn novel, which tons of people were excited about. The rumor is that it's bringing back a lot of stuff that was in the old expanded universe Thrawn, or at least hinting at it, letting the sort of old expanded universe fans know that, hey, all that stuff about Thrawn in the past wasn't completely lost. A lot of it was good. I mean, the Thrawn stuff was sort of regarded, as far as I could read and tell, as some of the best stuff in the expanded universe.
Exactly. People are very passionate. Now I'm going to throw this out there. I have not read those expanded universe novels.
I didn't either.
But from people that have read them, that yes, people are very, very much into Thrawn.
Yep. So my book is, like I said, it may have came in the mail today, or if not, it should be here soon. Definitely looking forward to reading it. I got one other Star Wars novel I'm about polishing off now. Definitely looking forward to it. He's definitely intrigued me in the Rebels series, and I believe just some synopsis I've read, it sort of takes place, it leads up to his appearance in the Rebels series, from what I've heard. So that's exciting. That's kind of another one of the tentpole books, I would say. There's a couple books that got a lot of press behind them, and then a lot of the other books are just sort of fillers.
I'll say this, I've not ever read one of the Star Wars novels, but this one I put on my wish list on Amazon because I'm that intrigued. I want to read about this character. All I know is that he's blue, he's humanoid, has red
He's from
eyes.
Wild Space.
Right.
Which is a thing that's becoming more and more talked about in the Star Wars universe.
Well, also what it's interesting to me is that there is an inherent racism within the Empire. for humans.
Yes.
So I want to see his take on things because he's humanoid, but he's not human.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see more about that.
Yeah.
So that very much interests me. I'd like to check it out. And just to jump in here, yes, you are correct. Star Wars Rebels is ending at the end of season 4.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. So it almost leads up to. I heard it's going to almost lead up to
Rogue One.
Rogue One, but then they also kind of said, well, it's not going to have a direct tie-in, whatever. So, anyways, let's transition out of that. That was a lot of Star Wars talk to catch up on.
It's a good time to be alive.
It is. We've discussed this. This is the golden age. So let's switch over to Marvel a little bit.
Another Disney property.
Yeah. We talked about how I recently got Netflix. It's probably 2 months ago now. But what I told you before was that I was waiting for Iron Fist to come out so that I could then binge watch all of the Marvel Netflix series leading up to it and not have to wait for them to come out. So I have Netflix. Thus far, I've watched Daredevil 1, Jessica Jones 1, Daredevil 2, and I'm about 4 or 5 episodes into Luke Cage 1 right now. I know you've seen all the same things that I've just mentioned.
I've completed all the things you've mentioned.
Right. So let's just talk about those 4 really quick. We haven't touched on those much really at all. What are your favorites of those 4?
Out of those 4, I'm going to go with Luke Cage as my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But I will add this caveat in that all these Marvel Netflix shows seem to start very strong, get a little bit muddled in the middle,
mm-hmm.
and then the ending is usually better than the middle, but they haven't stuck a landing like they've started at the beginning. The first, I'd say 3 or 4 episodes of Luke Cage, after I want to say it was 2 episodes in, I said, already, this is my favorite of the Marvel series.
Yeah. Well, and I think we have a little bit of each one that comes out has sort of some built momentum from the previous series, right?
Yes.
So I think Luke Cage would have benefited from that. But Luke Cage does have a very different feel than the other ones, and like I said, 4 or 5 episodes in, I'm really enjoying it as well. Daredevil 2 was probably my favorite of the 4 so far. I haven't finished Luke Cage, but I just felt like it didn't really have that lull in the middle as bad as Daredevil 1 and Jessica Jones did.
I agree with that. I mean, I will fully admit that for me, the first Daredevil was a bit of a slog.
It was, I think.
Yeah, there were some cool parts to it, obviously, the brutal fights.
Yeah, there were some great fight scenes.
Yes, but they're just brutal.
Yeah.
But it was a slow slog.
And I think it was kind of a foundation series, right? Because he didn't have a suit yet. We didn't have any other characters to be sort of involved with yet. It kind of had to start from somewhere, right?
I enjoyed it, but yeah, I admit I watched the first couple episodes and then waited almost a full year. I think I didn't watch the rest of it until Daredevil Season 2 came out, and I was like, all right, I need to catch up.
Right.
So I sat down and watched both seasons of Daredevil. It does improve significantly with Season 2. And then I tore through Jessica Jones, which...
I think I remember you commenting online when it first came out. I thought I remember you being really excited about Jessica Jones. Or maybe it was Shaylee or somebody really liked it.
It was definitely me, and here's why. In the early 2000s, they had a series that was based around Jessica Jones, a comic series, called Alias. It was also out around the same time as the TV show Alias, but they were completely different. And it's basically the story... The difference in the comic is that Jessica Jones was a superhero at one point and then realized she wasn't powerful enough to be an Avenger or anything like that.
Yeah, because that was where
retired,
the jewel thing came from, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Easter egg costume is in the...
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was in the show, yes. Yeah. And then she retired and became basically a private eye.
Yeah.
So there's that. The Netflix Jessica Jones is a little bit harder, as in she's... been roughed up a bit more. She's more cynical, a lot darker.
Yeah, she was a little angsty for me. I kind of wanted, because you kind of know eventually she's going to decide to do the right thing. So having to watch her struggle with, do I want to do the right thing for 10 episodes, kind of bothered me.
It's a Marvel show. She's going to get there.
Right, exactly. So that was the only thing. And I didn't dislike it. I thought it was very good. But like you said, that's where in the middle I kind of got bored with it,
What I liked, though, about Jessica Jones is that it was more of a messing of the mind, especially with their character, Kilgrave.
Yes.
Purple Man in the comics.
Yeah.
So I was super excited about it because it was a series that I loved as a comic that didn't get a lot of... It didn't get a lot of attention, not a
No,
lot of sales.
and when they announced Jessica Jones, I had never known who she was.
They did an omnibus, which collected the entire comic series, one hardbound, and I got the writer Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos, the artist, to both sign it, and then Gaydos did a sketch for me. So it's a prized possession. So I was hoping the show would be like the comic. It's its own beast, but I still liked it very much. It was good stuff.
Yeah, so, Luke Cage, I'm enjoying so far. Very different feel. It's getting really good for me right now. And then we have Iron Fist, which was the one I was looking forward to most, because when you talk about these sort of Tier 2 or Tier 3 Marvel heroes, Iron Fist was always sort of my favorite, if you want to call him Tier 2 hero. I just thought he was really cool. Has not gotten good reviews at all online. It's still rated really high on Netflix's internal rating system, although they might be manipulating that. But a lot of these things I'm able to go in with an open mind. I was a little let down that people weren't excited about it because I thought he had one of the potential to be one of the coolest of the Defenders heroes. So we'll see how it is. I'm going into it with an open mind, but it sounds like people aren't too excited about it yet. And then we're gonna have Punisher coming up after that.
I watched the first episode or so of Iron Fist. It was fine. I didn't dislike it. I just haven't felt compelled to watch the rest yet. I will, because I want to finish it before the Defenders comes out this summer. That I'm very excited about.
Yes, yeah.
But I have to admit, in the comics, I've never been interested in Iron Fist. A friend of mine out in Portland, he's got the tattoo, the dragon tattoo on his arm. That's how big a fan he is. So I've actually gone back and bought a couple of the comics digitally. I haven't read them yet, so I'm going to... Maybe if I read those and they're good enough, that'll kind of get me going to want to watch.
And one thing I was a little worried about too with this one was that is Iron Fist trying to bite off a little bit more than they can chew on the Netflix budget, because he has a mysticism side, which is it's hard to do those effects well without the big movie budget stuff, Doctor Strange type stuff. And they did such a good job with the sort of, dare I say, kung fu karate fight scenes in Daredevil. That it's like, okay, well, this guy, how are they going to make him look like he's much better than Daredevil is? So it wasn't going to be an easy task, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully there's learnings from it, and they're invested into this story arc in the series, that they can make it better the next time he shows up.
I agree with you, and I think you've made a fantastic point, because it kind of, Iron Fist almost begs the question, what's the point of this show? Because like you said, Daredevil, they showed he is an excellent martial artist, taught by stick. And then in season 2, you meet Elektra, who was trained to be an assassin and takes on the Hand. Now, I know that the Hand is supposed to show up in Iron Fist.
And the Hand is a bunch of ninjas.
Exactly.
So, we're kind of kung fu'd out at this point,
Right, so we've got already have the martial arts. Okay, so there's a mystical element to him as well. Well, we just saw that with Doctor Strange. So, I'm not saying that more characters can't inhabit the same space, but for me, Iron Fist is just, he seems, I don't know, derivative.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll see where they go with them, but I'm excited to watch that. And then you got the Defenders, and we got Punisher.
You mentioned Punisher. Now that one, I want to say, when we talked about Jessica Jones, how she's angsty, she's dark, but we knew she was going to become a hero at some point. The only show I think so far that can buck that trend is going to be Punisher. We know Daredevil's going to be a hero. We know Luke Cage is going to be a hero.
Yep.
Jessica Jones, Iron Fist. Punisher's not going to be a hero.
He's
an anti-hero.
Yeah, where he leaves off, he's doing killings that's for him and Kingpin sort of in symbiotic relationship, right? But he's not necessarily a good guy, but he's not necessarily a bad guy either. So, that's interesting. I just call him Shane
from The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead, but I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I'm very interested. I've actually seen all the Punisher movies, and they're not good. We know that.
Thomas Jane.
You know who actually my favorite is Ray Stevenson.
Yeah, he kind of did a good job too. And then who did there was an old one, right?
Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah,
it's awful. Absolutely awful. But so I'm liking what is being done right now. He's definitely brutal. I'm very interested to see what Marvel can do with this series to do the Punisher justice, because he deserves it.
And Punisher is one that's just custom made for, I'll call it quasi TV, right? Netflix TV. It's not HBO big budget, and it's not movie, but he doesn't need special effects. He needs guns and ammo in passion and rage, right? And you don't need extra money for that.
No, exactly. You don't need a huge special effects. I mean, there's going to be effects, because stuff's going to blow up, but you don't. It's not like Iron Fist where you're showing the mystical stuff and all Kunlun or all that stuff. No, it's shooting people.
Shoot them up, kill them all. So that covers the Marvel Netflix stuff that we hadn't been able to talk about because I hadn't watched any of it yet. Segueing with the rest of the Marvel stuff, Guardians of the Galaxy is the next release, right? Is it just a couple of weeks away now?
Yeah, mid-May.
Yeah, so that's coming up. We're seeing trailers exposing much more of the storyline and everything now.
Early reviews are coming in and it's saying, now obviously Marvel's going to support this, but a lot of early buzz is that this might be Marvel's best film, which I enjoyed.
Well, and so many people fell in love with the first one, right? People that weren't even into comics.
Exactly. And I have to admit, I'm not one of them. I enjoyed that movie a lot, but that summer, I think I mentioned before, it was also the same time Edge of Tomorrow came out, that Tom Cruise movie that did not do that well. For my money, that was the better...
Oh, that was a great movie.
That was my favorite movie that summer. Maybe it's because I know more about the comics and stuff. So, the Guardians of the Galaxy, I enjoyed it thoroughly, but that is a movie that more non-comics people seem to really enjoy, including my girls. They like the Avengers and all that stuff, but they loved Guardians of the Galaxy. So, it seems to speak to people that are not traditionally comic book movie people.
Yeah, totally. And even me, I was into comics, but I never really knew about Guardians of the Galaxy. To me, they were definitely tier 2.
At least.
At least. So, but when I remember seeing Rocket Raccoon, I'm like, oh, that's going to be interesting on screen. And it kind of was a sort of a, what do you want to call it? Sort of a buddy group flick, right? With the different personalities of all the guys. That's always a fun dynamic when you get good writing, you know. So,
and like you said earlier, it was nice to take it away from New York, take it away from Earth, and show that, which they'd already hinted at in the Thor movies, that there's a huge galaxy out there. It was nice to see this. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun.
I read an article talking about all the different people that make cameos in it. But then, in the top of the article it said, well, look, if you're not into spoilers, don't read this. So then I backed out.
On I-09?
Yeah.
I read the same exact one.
Did you back out?
No.
No, yeah, I know.
I read them all.
You totally love to have everything spoiled as much as possible. Because you want to know if it doesn't sound good, you're not going to spend that $9.
I read the spoilers and I was very happy. That's all I'm going to say.
So you are going to go spend your $9?
Well...
yeah, I know gas is getting pretty expensive, so maybe not.
Here's the deal. This is me. This is not me being cheap. It is.
Or thrifty.
It is me being thrifty. But here in town, we have an AMC theater now that they went and changed all the seats to the recliner seats.
Yeah.
If you go before noon, it's $5.18. So,
that's nice. That's good.
So
the old matinee price.
Exactly. So it makes it nice if you can buy the ticket. So if I can surpass the Friday night opening night and go Saturday or Sunday morning.
Yeah, go on. $5. Yep, the early Sunday.
Sit in comfort.
Yeah, the early Saturday show.
I'll do it that way. So I will go pay full price, but I prefer not to, just because why?
Yeah. So we're all excited about that. Thor Ragnarok. That trailer looked like a lot of fun.
Well, what I liked about it too is they obviously took several pages out of the Guardians of the Galaxy playbook.
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, yes, they hinted at it in the first two Thor movies that there's, that he's more interspatial, intergalactic than he is a god. So it's nice to see that they're touching more of these alien species. We saw them in the stinger at the end of Thor when his friends gave the with the Aether or whatever.
Oh, yep.
They gave it to the Collector.
Yep.
So we know that they inhabit the same space as Guardians of the Galaxy, and now it's more to that. You see spaceships and stuff. You're seeing aliens.
Mm-hmm. All kinds of new creatures and villains and stuff.
But also in the trailer, the humor that we saw a lot. I mean, all the Marvel movies have light moments, which makes them fun. But there's a lot of humor in Guardians of the Galaxy, and it looks like there's going to be a fair amount of humor now in the Thor movie. I'm not saying it has to be a clone of the Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Yeah.
But I think this is showing Marvel's strengths. They see what works, and they'll put the things that work into the movies where they're most appropriate. It fits here.
And I think they're kind of similar to what we just talked about with Iron Fist, right? Like if you don't give each character enough room to be his own person or make them interesting enough, and that's where I think with Thor, they're smartly saying, well, we probably need to insert a little bit of humor here because if it's just Thor and he's just Greek goddess, beautiful blonde hair guy. I mean, look, they even cut his hair off. So I feel like, yeah, they're trying here to really turn Thor into someone more interesting, have a side of humor, right? Because they already have Hulk, who he can't really be all that funny. He's got to be the big, strong guy. And, Tony Stark has his sense of humor, but he's a tech guy.
He's snarky, though. His sense of humor is meaner.
Right, exactly. So I think they're sort of trying to make sure that each character has room to breathe. And so I think that's going to make this Thor one really fun. It's the one that I'm most excited about. The other ones were sort of like, yeah, I'll go see it because I'm committed to Marvel. But I wasn't that excited about them.
Right. I mean, I'm excited about Guardians of the Galaxy for sure. And yeah, we got Spider-Man coming out this year too.
Yeah. And I'm really not, just to touch on that, I'm not even at all excited about that. I think we talked about before, I'm kind of Spider-Man out.
I can see that, and I can't say that I disagree with you.
So, I mean, I'm going in with low expectations, but I'm going to see it.
So, Guardians of the Galaxy, yes, I'm excited, but not as much as I think the average person, just because I didn't love the first one as much as everyone else. For me, and I think this is what you're saying too, the movie I'm most excited about this year coming from Marvel, which had you told me this a month ago, I would say this, I would not have believed you, is Thor.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's the one that's going to go into a new arc. But we never know. Guardians of the Galaxy might surprise us with something at the end that we're super excited about.
Well, apparently there's 5 credit scenes.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
5. So basically, once the credits start, just sit down because you got 5 more scenes coming.
Yeah. Switching right over a little bit to X-Men, it was announced that Josh Brolin will be Cable for the Deadpool series.
He's got the look.
Yeah, he's definitely got the look. It's the funny thing, like, what was his name? Chris Evans, right? So he's inhabiting 2 characters within the Marvel Universe. He did Johnny Storm and then Captain America, and now he's Thanos and then also Cable. Of course, Thanos is enough CGI and makeup that you could practically put anybody in there. It's more his voice, really, that is you're noticing in Thanos. So I think he'll make a good Cable. I think he's a good actor, too, which will do nothing but help these movies. Like, you don't want to see them put Channing Tatum in there, you know what I mean?
Oh, God, why would you even say that?
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's something that, like, the Fox franchise probably would have done 4 years ago.
Well, Channing Tatum is supposed to be...
Gambit.
Thank you, Gambit.
Yeah.
Whether or not that it's actually going to ever film, who knows?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I like Channing Tatum for what he does, and I like him in action comedy movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily need to see him in any X-Men movie ever.
Yeah, and I mean, Cable's a character. He has to carry some gravitas, right? I mean, he's a pretty big. He's definitely tier 1, X-Men world.
Don't get me wrong. Josh Brolin's going to do a fantastic job, but I really kind of wish they had cast Stephen Lang.
I don't know him by name. I'm sure if I saw him, I'd know. Exactly
First Avatar movie.
The bad guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's already got the build. He's got the white hair.
He's not big. He's not bulky enough, though. But yeah, I see it. He's got the grizzled white hair look,
right
for sure.
Right after the last Deadpool movie, the first Deadpool movie, he publicly kind of campaigned for that. And I was like, yes.
Well, I heard also they were talking about Brad Pitt. But I think he came out and...
He's too pretty.
I think he actually came out and said that he had an actual conflict that wouldn't allow him to do it. Now, it doesn't mean he was gonna, but it was a convenient answer.
He's too pretty.
Yeah, he's getting older now, though. I think he could have pulled it off.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely getting a little bit grizzled, but I don't know. I think they would pull me out of the movie to see Brad Pitt as Cable.
Yeah, and I'm happy with Brolin. It's one of those things where, like, they could have announced somebody and I could have not liked it, but I'm totally okay with it.
Well, they announced it. I was like, I didn't see that coming, but you know what? I can see it. It works.
So that kind of catches us up on most of that stuff without going into too much more depth. And so the last thing we want to talk about here, sort of current event, is Ghost in the Shell. So there had been a lot of discussion leading up to it. So I'll call it, I'll say political discussion,
Whitewashing.
Yeah, and then a lot of stuff afterwards. Obviously, people with a lot of opinions. And I'll just say up front, having seen the movie, I kind of feel like it was a lot of people just wanting to be angry about stuff. Not to say that there isn't some legitimacy to it, but I feel like you at some point you have to separate that from, okay, do I like the movie as it stands, right? I mean, it's not Scarlett Johansson's fault. She's not going to just turn down the contract. So at some point, you got to go and say, well, hey, I like Scarlett Johansson. This might be a good movie. That's kind of what I did. I thought it was great. I really liked the movie. Now, you haven't seen it, right?
You didn't say good. You thought it was great.
I thought it was great. Well, I thought it was really good. I mean, great's a strong word.
Okay.
So I thought it was really good for sure. I mean, I feel like it did, like the original anime, and I don't want to get too much in here. I want you to jump in here. But like the original anime, I think it did get a little bit slow in the middle. but I think the beginning was good enough and the ending was good enough that it was all right.
See, I'm not a hardcore enough fan of manga and anime. I didn't read the original manga by, is it Masamune Shiro? I never read that, but I did see the original anime, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
I think early 90s.
I think it was early 90s, yes.
I saw that. I remember having to get it from Blockbuster and watch it, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thought it was a really interesting story. But I don't, Hollywood I don't think has a very good track record with translating a lot of the nuances and themes they're trying to get across in Japanese films. So I haven't seen it though, so I can't speak to that. I'm just saying in the past.
I see in the past. Yes, you're right. You're right.
I'm not saying they haven't done it with this. I heard they made some major story changes. You would know better than I. So I don't know. You're going to tease me that I'm going to be typical Michael in that I heard the bad buzz and said nope.
Yeah, the nerd gang has their pitchforks out, so instead of standing on your own opinion, you're going to go get in line with the pitchforks.
I don't always do that. I saw Suicide Squad, which also was getting panned pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe they're wrong. And I said, nope, they're right.
Yeah, no, that was one where you would have been in the right taking your Michael stance on that one. But so a couple points on the Ghost in the Shell. So for me, I think there was two key things that, I saw the original anime a few years back. I wasn't old enough to see it when it came out. And then I made sure I watched it about 6 months before this movie came out. And I didn't get into all the other standalone complex and all these other versions of it,
Right.
But I know the original. And one of the things about the original, it's so good, is the music is great in the original. The dialogue, it's really a quite dialogue-heavy movie, the original animated.
Yes.
And then just the just the visuals and the way that it's sort of, I'll say, shot, even though it's all animated. So much of that just gives that movie a feel that just feels like, wow, this is good. And none of that, I shouldn't say none, a lot of that stuff doesn't translate over well to a live-action movie. Live-action movie, you got to have different stuff to keep the audience interested. So to me, I think, okay, once you take all the interesting animation out of the original, and if you sort of take out, well, this can't just be a super dialogue-heavy blockbuster movie, well, then you're going to have to start filling gaps with other stuff at that point. Right. I think a lot of people weren't willing to accept that. They just wanted to like it as much as the original, which was never going to happen. If you love the original, there's not going to be any topping it with a blockbuster movie with Scarlett Johansson 30 years later.
I can see that. Here's one thing, too. And you've seen it. I haven't, obviously, so you can tell me. Well, there's not as many mechs in this as are in a lot of other anime, but for my money, nobody does mechs. Well, seriously, better than Japanese anime, even their live action stuff they've done. The U.S. market has not gotten mechs right. Pacific Rim was close. In fact, the only person outside of Japan that I think gets mechs right is Neil Blomkamp.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it got panned, and I'm not going to go too much into it because it's not our focus, but I actually liked Chappie.
Oh, did it get panned?
Yeah.
I have not talked to many people that did not like that movie.
I really
people either
liked it.
Didn't see it or they seen it and really liked it.
See, that was another one of those ones where the buzz was that it was bad, so I didn't see it in the theater.
Now there was a big backlash to people felt it was a little over the top with all the how do you pronounce it? D'Antwerp, whatever.
Oh, D'Antwerp in there.
Yeah, D'Antwerp. So immediately after seeing the movie, you're like, yeah, it did feel like they pushed those guys a little bit too much. But then later, like looking back now, I almost don't remember how much they were in it, and I remember the themes, and I remember Chappie.
Yeah, I mean, I know this isn't our topic, but
so, anyways, yes, getting back on topic, the Ghost in the Shell, I thought it was nice. Like I said, I'm having this conversation with the whole whitewashing thing aside. I mean, we could have a whole show on that. But like I said, at some point, the movie has to be just the movie, and that's what I want to try to talk about. And I liked how they changed the storyline a little bit. I shouldn't say I liked how they changed it. I just felt like the storyline in the movie worked well. Okay. I thought a lot of the effects were great. I thought, the I forget his name, but the Major's partner, the guy, I thought they executed him great. To me, he was like almost as good a facsimile of the original animated that you're going to get.
So I'm noticing a little foreshadowing here. I'm thinking at some point we're going to have to do a Should I Check It Out? And you're gonna reiterate a lot of what you just said.
No, we can't even let's just get this over with right now. Should I check it out, Ghost in the Shell? Yes, I think you really need to go see it. I think you're not so tied to the original anime that if you're really even listening to me give my spiel here on the soapbox, if you go into it open-minded, I think you're going to find it's pretty good too. And I think you got to remember, we have to remember, Ghost in the Shell is not very popular. In the nerd world, yes, it is, but outside of that, nobody knows what it is. So it's kind of a similar thing to it wasn't as good as the book. Well, yeah, but nobody reads books. Now I say that saying the movie-going population, not many of them read the books, right? So
the book's always better.
All right, the book's always better.
Usually better.
Yeah, it's usually better. And same thing here. People are going to think the original anime was better, but nobody has seen that anime. I mean, 1 out of probably 100 average Americans have seen the anime.
Right. And I do grant you are correct. It's been long enough since I watched the original that I probably don't remember the story quite as well, where changes in the story would kind of go past me. So I bet you I could just enjoy this movie for what it is. So I will give it a shot. I don't know when. Probably before I watch Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah, no, you should do that. I mean, when I rewatched The Ghost in the Shell, like I said, it was just a little bit before the movie came out. Again, I still felt, wow, this is really cool. But it also kind of dawned on me that, this isn't the greatest storyline in the world. I had no problems with it, but it wasn't one of the best.
Didn't blow your mind?
It didn't blow my mind. I mean, maybe it would have in 91, but it doesn't now, so...
Now, let me throw this out there. It's not in our notes, but talking about this movie that is based on anime, I want to throw something out there. Have you heard of this Japanese anime? It's not really sci-fi. Yeah, it is a bit, but it's not robots and people and computers blowing each other up. But have you heard of this anime called Your Name?
I have. That's the movie that everybody's like, it's the best movie of the year or something, right?
Yeah. So
and it was playing in town for a couple of days, but it was only on at 4 p.m. or something at the theater.
Well, so a couple weeks ago, I'm in Virginia Beach on vacation. We were there visiting my partner's son. He's in the Navy. And as it so happened that week we were there, it was showing at a theater in Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. So we went and saw it on a Friday night together. He wanted to take us because he had watched it 3 times already online. Through legal means, I'm sure.
I was going to say...
I'm sure it was 100% legal.
Guess they're really teaching discipline there.
I can't speak. Maybe he did get it legally. I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. It was 100% legal as far as I know. But we went and saw it in the theater, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to checking it out. I think I missed the tiny little window I had to actually see it in the theater, but I want to see it. I heard good things.
Now, it's nothing like Ghost in the Shell. It's nothing like One Punch Man. It's more of a relationship type movie, but there is a heavy sci-fi element to it in the twist of the movie. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm going to say. So let me throw this out there. I'm sure if you're into anime already, you already know about the movie. But if you get the opportunity and you see it, it's in a theater nearby, and you don't mind subtitles, because as far as I know, it's not dubbed.
No, it is dubbed. There's a dubbed version. When I looked at it for the Grand Rapids, you could go see either the subtitled version or the dubbed version.
We saw the subtitle, which doesn't bother me, but some people it puts them off. Mm-hmm. I saw the subtitled and loved it. It was one of the best films I've seen in the last year.
Yeah, and subtitle movies sometimes force you to pay more attention to the story, right?
Right. And I'm not going to ruin any of the spoilers. I'm not going to get too heavy into the plot, but just for anyone that's interested, it's basically a teenage girl and a teenage boy who, over the course of a few days, realize that when one's asleep, one is taking over the other's body and living their life a bit. And it's causing there's some funny stuff that happens because obviously, if a teenage boy finds himself in a teenage girl's body, he's going to be like, "What?" Does
calamity ensue?
Calamity does ensue. I mean, there's the typical stuff that you would know what happened, but then there's a real heart to the movie. And again, I don't want to ruin it in any way, shape, or form, but it's kind of a romance. It's sci-fi. It's something you should see. That's basically it. It's good.
Okay, well, that basically wraps up the longest intro in the history of WNRD episodes.
Maybe we shouldn't even call this the intro. This is just going to be
the catch-up show.
This is the catch-up show. This is what happens when we don't get the 2 episodes out a month.
On time. We got to catch up on stuff when it goes on. So we might edit this episode out a little bit so that this may be the full episode. We may throw something short in here, but So we'll move on to the rest of the episode next. But yeah, it was great catching up on all that stuff.
As we've gotten through our introduction now, we saw that it was way longer than usual than the 5-10 minutes we wanted. We went way long. We're talking at least 45 odd minutes. So we've done a full episode as an intro, but that's okay. We've missed out on a few things over the last few weeks. So we promised the last episode that this one was going to include our definitive ranking of the Alien and Predator movies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that got bumped because we couldn't shut up.
No, we did, and we did. We do have that. We've already recorded that segment, so we will bump that to the next episode, right. And we'll be able to release it pretty quickly here. So we should have a good cadence of episodes if you're listening to this one.
Yeah. So this is now episode 11, episode 12, Aliens and Other Geek Stuff.
Right. Okay. Take us home, Mike.
All right. Just one more time. We'll reiterate our addresses. You can follow us on Twitter at WNRD Podcast. Once again, on Twitter, that's WNRD Podcast. Also, current episodes, for the most part, you can find on SoundCloud.
The most recent ones will be on there.
Yes. The SoundCloud only lets us have like 180 minutes up there, so we, on average, have 3 episodes up there.
Yeah, keep rotating those out.
So, soundcloud.com/WNRD. Once again, you'll always find our episodes on YouTube. Go to YouTube, do a search for WNRD Podcast. If you want to email us, it's also WNRDpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you have episode ideas.
And I'm sure lots of people are going to completely hate my take on Ghost in the Shell here. So.
Well, you never know. I mean, maybe.
Well, again,
you did completely ignore the whole whitewashing thing.
Well, like I said, I don't want this show to get too political, you know.
Right. So, that's our episode. We're sorry that we don't know how to shut up. So, I'll be seeing you.
Catch you next time.